In 1963, the United States conducted a nationwide survey of its national bird, and the results were devastating. Only 417 nesting pairs of bald eagles remained in the entire lower 48 states. The bird printed on every dollar bill, stamped on every government seal, and mounted on every military insignia in the country was on the edge of extinction. A century earlier, more than 100,000 nesting pairs had soared over American skies from the coast of Maine to the mountains of California. The collapse began with a chemical called DDT. Dichlorodiphenyltrichloroethane was first synthesized in a European laboratory in 1874, but its power as an insecticide was not discovered until 1939. During World War II, the United States military sprayed DDT across the Pacific Theater to kill mosquitoes that carried malaria, saving thousands of soldiers from the disease. After the war ended, American farmers adopted DDT for civilian agriculture. By the 1950s, millions of pounds were being sprayed every year across every state in the country, on cotton fields in the South, apple orchards in the Northeast, and wheat farms across the Great Plains. Nobody understood what was happening inside the food chain. DDT did not break down in the natural environment. It persisted in soil and water for years. The chemical accumulated in the fatty tissue of insects that absorbed it from treated crops. Small birds ate the contaminated insects and concentrated the DDT further in their own bodies. Hawks, eagles, ospreys, and pelicans ate the smaller birds, and the chemical concentrated again at each level of the food chain. Scientists would later name this process bioaccumulation. It turned apex predators, the animals at the very top of the ecosystem, into the most contaminated organisms on the entire continent. The effect on bald eagles was catastrophic and completely invisible to the naked eye. DDT disrupted calcium metabolism in female eagles, causing them to produce eggshells so thin and fragile that the weight of the nesting parent crushed the eggs flat before the embryos inside could develop. Entire breeding seasons across vast regions of the country produced 0 surviving chicks. Eagle populations in the eastern United States collapsed by more than 90% between 1950 and 1963. Nests that had been occupied for decades sat empty year after year, the adults still alive but unable to produce young that survived to hatching. Marine biologist Rachel Carson published Silent Spring in 1962. The book documented the devastating chain of destruction that synthetic pesticides were inflicting on wildlife across America. Carson described how chemicals designed to kill crop pests were cascading through ecosystems and destroying species that had no connection to agriculture. The chemical industry attacked her with extraordinary ferocity. Industry spokesmen called her hysterical and emotionally unbalanced. They questioned her credentials and her motives. They funded campaigns to discredit her research. Carson died of breast cancer in April 1964, just 2 years after publication. She never saw the movement she created reach its conclusion. But Silent Spring had already changed the national conversation permanently. The book is widely credited as the catalyst for the modern environmental movement in the United States and the direct inspiration for the creation of the Environmental Protection Agency. In 1972, William Ruckelshaus, the first administrator of the newly created EPA, signed an order banning DDT for agricultural use in the United States. The decision was immediate, sweeping, and bitterly opposed. The chemical industry predicted agricultural collapse. Farmers argued that crop yields would plummet without their most effective insecticide. A federal hearing examiner had actually recommended against the ban after months of testimony. Ruckelshaus overruled him and signed the order anyway, citing the overwhelming scientific evidence of ecological harm. The eagle recovery was not instant. Bald eagles reproduce slowly compared to most birds. A nesting pair raises at most 2 or 3 chicks per year, and young eagles do not reach breeding maturity until they are 4 or 5 years old. But with DDT levels declining steadily in the environment after the ban, Eggshell thickness began returning to normal within a few breeding cycles. Hatch rates improved across the country within a decade. Wildlife agencies in multiple states launched aggressive captive breeding and reintroduction programs throughout the 1970s and 1980s. The Patuxent Wildlife Research Center in Maryland became the national hub of eagle recovery science. Biologists there developed techniques for artificial incubation of eggs taken from wild nests and pioneered a method called hacking, which involved placing captive bred chicks in specially constructed artificial nests in the wild where they could learn to fly and hunt independently before their first winter. The Endangered Species Act of 1973 provided critical legal protection on top of the DDT ban. The law made it a federal crime to kill, capture, sell, or disturb bald eagles or their nesting sites. Important habitat received legal protection from development and logging. Federal enforcement officers prosecuted poachers, egg collectors, and landowners who destroyed nests. The combination of chemical regulation, legal protection, habitat preservation, and active breeding programs created a multi-layered recovery framework that no single measure could have achieved alone. The numbers climbed steadily for 4 decades. By 1995, the bald eagle was reclassified from endangered to threatened. By 2007, the population had recovered so dramatically that the species was officially removed from the federal endangered species list entirely. The most recent comprehensive survey, completed in 2021 by the United States Fish and Wildlife Service using aerial counts and statistical modeling, documented more than 71,400 nesting pairs across the lower 48 states, from 417 pairs in 1963 to over 71,000 pairs in 2021. A 170-fold increase in less than 60 years. Bald eagles now nest in every single state in the continental United States, including densely populated urban areas where they had not been seen in over a century. Pairs have been documented nesting on rooftops in Washington, D.C., in suburban parks outside New York City, along highway corridors in Florida, and in industrial zones in the Great Lakes region. The bald eagle recovery is considered the single greatest success story in the 50-year history of the Endangered Species Act. It demonstrates that when a government identifies the specific cause of a wildlife collapse, removes that cause completely, and then protects the surviving population with the force of law, nature can recover at a speed and scale that astonishes even the scientists who dedicated their entire careers to making it happen. The national bird that nearly vanished from American skies now outnumbers every recovery projection that biologists ever dared to publish.